Let's talk to Sir Jake Berry, Conservative MP, former Conservative Party chairman, and he joins us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Julia.
Lots I want to talk to you about.
I thought you were going to say a bad word then about let's call them what they are, and I shouted something at the screen, but luckily I was muted out.
Well, thank goodness, yes. Look, I do want to talk about Liz Truss, the speech. We're going to be talking about what she's had to say, but I do want to ask you first of all about Russell Brand, very much in the news. Politicians are being asked about this issue. You know, BBC, Channel 4, Endemol, as they were at the time, probing, you know, what they knew when and how they acted. Of course, police saying they're conducting an investigation, more women coming forward. Russell Brand, it must be stressed, has denied any wrongdoing, these accusations of rape and sexual assault from 4 women so far. But what do you make of, trial by media? Is it the mainstream media coming for a man speaking up against the mainstream media? What do you make of these allegations?
Well, look, first of all, I mean, huge congratulations to the Sunday Times. This has been a massively detailed investigation across multiple countries, the United States of America and Britain, to name but 2. It does seem to me that the challenge is now, however, if Russell Brand is guilty, and he has denied all the allegations, as you say, of these serious criminal offences, it may become difficult, and I say this as a lawyer, to pursue a prosecution against him because of the nature of the media commentary. Now, that doesn't mean that the Sunday Times shouldn't have done this, because you can't help but feeling, given that this has been referred to on programmes, on Talk and on Times Radio this morning as an open secret about him, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't have exposed him. It's clear to me that they should have done, but these are, you know, serious criminal offences, and if proven, I hope that the full weight of the law will be used against him.
Well, again, we'll see. Again, if they are proven, we shall wait and see. Yeah. Let me talk to you about an event this morning. Liz Truss, the former Prime Minister, just 49 days. Someone you were a very big defender of Liz Truss at the time. She has got a big speech this morning. She's also launched a broadside against Rishi Sunak, claiming he spent £35 billion more than she would have as Prime Minister. We're coming up around, you know, the anniversary of that. Well, you know, pretty, as it turned out, disastrous budget announcement by her then Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng. Those two have certainly fallen out since then after she sacked him. But there is a lot of talk about, you know, whether or not what she was planning to do would have actually done more for the economy than what Rishi Sunak has had to do. Do you still stand by that budget?
Well, of course, we'll never know, will we? Because she resigned so quickly afterwards. We never had the opportunity to see the impact of what her budget would have been. I think for me, Liz Truss will go down as basically the Les Dawson Prime Minister, as playing all the right notes, but not necessarily in the right order. I think fundamentally, her view that we need to move from this high tax, high regulation economy and separate more from Europe and trade freely with the world is fundamentally the right approach to Britain's economy. I just think the implementation, for which, you know, I hold my hands up, I was in the cabinet, I have to take partial responsibility, was wrong. So we'll never know. But I think fundamentally, and look, you know, you can see it. I mean, you know, Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister and Keir Starmer are effectively proposing a very similar economic trail, but of course interest rates in some cases are actually higher than they were under her budget. The bond yields are certainly no lower and in some cases higher than they were under her budget. Britain's economy is fundamentally facing global challenges, and there's 2 ways of dealing with it. You can basically say we are going to be a high tax, high regulation, social democratic country, aping our near neighbours in Europe, or we can be a low tax, low regulation country that believes in freedom and free trade, effectively being a bit more like America and other economic superpowers. I know which route I want to take, but dragging the country onto either one of those routes, it is politically controversial.
Well, the advances on her speech are saying what she's going to say is, what I sought to do was change the trajectory of spending by holding spending down, not allowing any new spending to take place over the coming spending review period. Not reopening the spending review represented a tough approach on spending given the levels of inflation. She says that would have saved billions compared with the additional commitments that the Rishi Sunak has made to the NHS, to schools, childcare and defence. We are in a difficult situation in this country where I think most people, whatever their party affiliation or none, would agree, where we have very, very high tax levels, we have huge government spending, but we have virtually nothing to show for it. There is not a good public service at all. I mean, no one thinks schools are in great nick. No one certainly thinks the NHS is in good nick. I mean, look at where we are with transport and, HS2 decisions. We are, the streets are in a dreadful state. Social care is in a dreadful state. You wait ages to get a passport, to get a driving test. There is a general feeling that this country isn't working anymore, and yet we're paying what we feel are sky-high taxes. What's gone wrong and who's to blame? Because whenever you have a Tory saying this is what we need to do, the perfectly reasonable response is, what have you lot been doing for the last 13 years?
Well, I think, I remember one of Ronald Reagan's quotes, which was that it's not that the government is isn't taking enough bread off my table, it's that the public sector is too fat. I think that the public sector does need reform. It needs thinning down. We saw, for example, 100,000 new civil servants employed during the COVID crisis. How many of those have lost their job? I can count it on two fingers. It's absolutely zero. That has become the new baseline. And that's what happens in the public sector. Effectively, every time you expand it, that is the new baseline for the public sector. I don't agree with that. We have all sorts of nonsense jobs. There's a story in the Telegraph this morning about the NHS spending billions of pounds on employing, I don't know what their official title is, but woke officers, I think.
But 244 new people on a high five-figure and even early six-figure salaries. Diversity. Well, one of the jobs. There's three different organisations being set up, departments. One is equality, diversity, and inclusion. The other is people and culture. The other is people and communities. I don't even know what these people would do.
Well, it's complete and utter nonsense, isn't it? Just ask yourself, what do you want to be prioritised? Your mother or father's or grandparents' hip operation, or someone to tell you that you should wear a rainbow lapel badge? If people want to wear rainbow lapel badges during Pride Week and Pride Month, then good for them, but they don't need to be told to do it. No, sorry, it's just complete and utter nonsense. I'm a bit old-fashioned. I believe in freedom. I think that we've had our freedom massively undermined in this country. I believe in the British people and our ability to determine our own way. And it seems to me that every government since Tony Blair in 1997 has to some extent eroded that. And if we want a Britain that isn't in, it isn't it doesn't have the feeling of being in decline, then I think we need to reassess the way our country is being run.
But then, do you support the Prime Minister on issues like net zero? He's going to go ahead with this ban on the sale of new petrol and diesel cars in 2030, we're told. We see the Labour Welsh Government imposing a 20-mile-per-hour zone in pretty much default most built-up areas. There's very little evidence of it having any particularly good impact on safety. Basically, the risk around schools is one thing, but on most roads, probably negligible, but an economic cost there. We've got constantly, the ULEZ zone, constant impact on our ability to live our lives freely. And this is all happening fundamentally under a Conservative Westminster government.
Well, I mean, do I believe in net zero? Yes. I think saving the environment is a good thing.
Net zero and saving the environment are not the same things.
Well, no, but let me go on and say that I'm not sure that doing it by 2050 is economically sustainable in this country.
So you don't believe in the net zero targets then?
Well, I think the debate about it is, if you are going to hit that, who pays? In my constituency, we have loads of back-to-back terraced houses. You can't put a heat pump on those. We've got loads of men and women who go to work in an older vehicle or an older van. They don't have, they can't dip their non-existent savings account to spend 40 grand on a new electric van. It's just not the way people live. And I think the big problem we have is that we have a sort of metropolitan view of this country where everyone wants to whiz around the streets in Teslas. You go out to the countryside in Lancashire, most people's aspirational car is an old Land Rover Defender because they need it to get through the snow. And, that's why, completely off topic, it's why I'm such a huge believer in devolution. And, if we had more regional and local voices making decisions, I just think we would get better decisions in this country.
Can I ask you about Keir Starmer and something he said in an interview with the Financial Times today from his bromance meeting in Montreal in Canada with Justin Trudeau and other basic pro-lockdown fanatics, as far as I can tell, that was the meeting. He says he's going to seek to rewrite the Brexit deal we've got in 2025. It does come up for renewal. Whoever is Prime Minister would have an opportunity to review it. He says he's going to seek a much better deal. The current deal, he says, too thin, and he says he owes it to his children to have better relations with the EU. Do you agree?
Well, I'm not surprised by Keir. I don't agree that he'll do a better job, but I'm not surprised by this approach of Keir Starmer. Look, he's never, ever believed in Brexit. I was in Parliament with him between 2017 and 2019, and he was the main cheerleader for a second referendum. So if you voted to leave, I voted to remain in the European Union. I wasn't a leading light of the Brexit movement like you, Julia, but I am fundamentally a Democrat. And when he spent his entire period in Parliament before he's leader of the Labour Party trying to reverse that decision, he does not believe in Brexit. I don't believe that he believes in Britain. And if you look at the statistics that came out actually on Friday, which didn't get much airtime because of other events in the news, Britain is trading more than ever with Europe, both by volume and by value. We have got more jobs exchanged with Europe than ever before. Brexit is working. The country may still be having a tough time, but that is to do with COVID and the war of Ukraine. Brexit is working, and people are concerned about this migrant crisis across the Channel. Just think how much worse it would be if we weren't able to attempt, I'm not saying it's worked, but attempt to take strong action to stem the flow of people entering our country illegally. Brexit has been a good thing for Britain, and it seems to me that everything we hear out of Keir Starmer's mouth is about unravelling Brexit, going back to a closer and closer ties with the European Union. And I'm not surprised, because he has said over and over again in the House of Commons that Brexit is a bad thing and he wants to unravel it. It was before he was leader of the Labour Party, but he hasn't changed his mind.
No, indeed. So Jake Berry, Conservative MP, thank you very much indeed for joining us.